Welcome back to Catholic Pipes. I'm Kadesh, and I'm sitting here with Master Blender Jeremy Reeves from Cornell and Diehl, and he's going to tell us more about this really exciting job that he has. So I'll hand it off to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I grew up in New Mexico, and when I was 19, I decided to kind of get out of the little town that I had grown up in and go and see the world. And so I wanted to go to Chicago. I spent some time there and just really experienced a totally different kind of life than what my experience had been in rural New Mexico. But one of the things that I kind of got into was cigars.
Yeah.
And so after a few years of sort of dabbling in cigars and kind of learning about it and just sort of having this hobby, something to like geek out about, thought it'd be really cool to work in the industry. And so I thought, first step would be get a job at a shop. And really I wasn't thinking much more than like get an employee discount.
Yeah.
I like learning about these things, and so like this would be an opportunity to just like kind of spend all day like smoking cigars, which I enjoyed doing, getting a little bit of a chunk off of the price that I was paying for cigars, and being able to spend a bunch of time talking to people about cigars. And it turned out to be way deeper than that for me. Cigars were rad, but what was even cooler was all the different kinds of people that were brought together, all of the different sort of like kind of disparate parts of society that seemed to find a sort of crossroads in our tobacco shop. And then I started realizing that this was not necessarily unique to our shop, that this happens in shops all over the world, that people from all walks of life that might not have interacted any other way find a home in a shop that exposes them to all different kinds of ideas and all different kinds of people that they might not have met any other way. So it quickly turned from like something that just I could sort of geek out on like as a product and something I enjoyed to being something that was more like, oh, this is like
it's deep
sociology happening in front of me, and I can like take part in this in a really special way. So tobacco really kind of got its hooks in me by virtue of that, by virtue of different sort of ways where I just watched this play out time and time again. The people that really connected in ways that my take, they wouldn't have if it hadn't been through this.
I see that too, like a lot of shows that I go to as well. Like I call, when people talk about the pipe community, I say a pipe is the great equalizer.
Yeah.
You go in there and you could have people in the top 1% to middle America to just on the bottom rungs with just your corn cob all up to really expensive pipe, but it doesn't matter. At that point in time, if you have a pipe, you're welcome at the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't matter. Like you never really know much about people's big things like political, religious affiliations. They're just talking about life and enjoying the leaf together. And I saw that too myself. It was just this great societal glue for people to come together and just kind of forget about the really polarizing issues and just say like, how are you? How are you doing? And do you enjoy this too? And you get to come together in this kind of camaraderie over this particular organic product.
Yeah.
And so you went from cigars, and I love that, getting the two birds with one stone thing, where like going for the employee discount, but then you love cigars, so you have this job that's really great hobby. You get to have what you really enjoy, but it keeps on going deeper. But at some point you transition over to then getting into the blending side. So what was that transition from the shop and cigars to then getting to this point of actually now creating these blends that people all over get to enjoy and talk about and actually have that communal moment with a tin of something that you blended yourself? Like, how did you get there?
So I don't have any like real easy way to distill this. This happened over a really long period of time, working in shops.
Yeah.
And then working in restaurants. And then working in shops again. And kind of, basically most of my work experience was split between tobacco retail, cigar shops, and then pipe shops. I worked at Yvonne Reese. I worked at La Casa del Tobacco. I worked at Blue Havana. I worked in a couple of different raw bars. I worked at Kuma's Corner. I worked at a couple of different bakeries in Chicago. I moved to Portland, Oregon, and worked at a raw vegan restaurant for a while.
Wow. Done a little bit of everything.
Then worked at a wood-fired pizza place, and basically at some point after a few years at Pyro Pizza, the wood-fired spot, decided that I wanted to maybe get something back into a tobacco shop. Like along the way, I had really transitioned from cigars to really thinking that pipes were much more interesting.
Yeah.
And pipe culture, I thought was more interesting. I really transitioned from being a cigar smoker that dabbled in pipes occasionally to being a pipe smoker that occasionally enjoyed a cigar.
Oh, okay.
And I started blending at home. And, I went through a period where I just kind of wanted to get back into a shop or something like it. I applied at smoking pipes.
Okay.
And I didn't even really know what position I wanted to, like, they had a couple of things open, and I was in Portland, Oregon, or way down here in, Long, South Carolina, or at the time, Little River, South Carolina. And so, yeah, I reached out on kind of a whim, and they flew me out for 3 days of interviews based on cover letter, resume, and yeah, at the end of it, I got a position at their establishment just in customer service.
Okay.
For the website. Well, little did I know at the time that they were just a couple of months away from announcing that they were incorporating Cornell and Diehl, my favorite pipe tobacco manufacturer, into their stable of brands. Cornell and Diehl would be part of DC Enterprises, and so when I learned this, just was like, oh, this might be an opportunity. And yeah, within a year, I had opportunity to transition over to Cornell and Diehl, and yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. But this is over, from 2002 until 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So
It's about a decade in between.
Yeah.
So when they acquired that, and then from there, with the experience you had, so to get to that, did you start working then with the brand Cornell and Diehl, and then from there kind of started going up until you got that position, or did it come available?
So part of the merger was basically like they were up in Morganton, North Carolina.
Okay.
Obviously, DC is based in South Carolina. So the plan was that C&D would relocate after a year.
Okay.
To be part of the rest of DC. And so a few things needed to happen. One was C&D needed to have some better tools and some better options for Leaf, and some capital to kind of help with some issues that the company had. And smoking pipes, customer service, the shipping department, all of the website and all of that needed a bigger building so that Cornell and Diehl could fit in there with them. So after a little over a year, C&D relocated down to South Carolina. I had been working kind of split between smoking pipes, customer service for 2 weeks, and then going to Morganton and just kind of learning all of the workings and like understanding the whole process, understanding like all of the things that they were doing. And once I had gone through about 6 months of this, really just digging deep into everything that was happening at C&D, then started the process of kind of rethinking a lot of it and all right, how do we do what we need to do efficiency-wise and still get the end result and the product that we need? And how do we need to rethink certain processes to make
Okay.
things better.
Yeah.
How do we need to rethink our leaf selection to make blends better? Like all kinds of things.
So there's a technical side to it, and as part of that training as well, as you as some of the people out there who are pipe smokers, they get certain blends because they actually like the flavor profile. Like if you have a GLPs, like you can tell it's GLPs by the way his flavors come across, and other brands as well. They're unique, and so is that part of it too? Is kind of learning what the flavor aesthetic of Cornell and Diehl was. To be like, okay, this is emblematic of this particular thing, and so I don't want to stray too far away from what they are as a pipe tobacco, but I want to play within those flavor profiles a little bit.
That's correct, but a lot of that stuff I already like. I was a longtime C&D smoker at this point. Like
Yeah.
pretty much everything that I was running through my pipe had come out of their facility. So I was very familiar with the kind of style that they were working within, and I was familiar with a lot of what Greg was doing, and it was more like, okay, what of these things are things that like need to be sacred,
Okay,
and what
yeah.
of these things are things that need to
Stay, be there.
right, and what of these things can we lose? What of these things could use improvement?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was C&D was a very, very small cult brand, and in the last 10 years we've gone from being a company of 5 or 6 people to being a company of 23 people.
Oh, that's big growth.
And you know, the year that I started with them, they closed out the year at less than 20,000 pounds of finished product. And this last year, we ended the year at nearly 200,000 pounds of finished product. So
That's
I
a
mean,
big difference.
yes.
Huge.
So there were all sorts of things that were things that needed adjustment in order to get them to next steps.
Okay.
And
What is there
been a process.
since the time you've been there? Is there a particular blend that you're like really proud of? You're kind of like that was something special about that one. Whether it was the leaf, whether it was how it came out, but one you were just kind of like that was something special.
Sun Bear is always going to have a soft spot for me. Like I've always really enjoyed that blend, but working on Sun Bear was special to me because the first 2 batches that we did, we used honey from beehives that my girlfriend and I kept.
Oh wow! Okay, that is a special touch.
It was really cool to have something that, like, my work at Cornell and Diehl has been pretty all-consuming for the time that I've been there, and it's been a real passion project for me. It's been a real passion project for the people that work there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's not just a job. You know what I mean? It's something that is like craft and care, and every day, everyone is coming in with like a unique focus. It feels much more like working in a kitchen.
It's
It
almost
feels,
vocational, almost.
oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just put stuff in tins, or like, okay, I've got to go grab this. Like, it's like everything you're doing is a process and a project and a unique experience that has to be thought through.
Yeah.
You're not just on autopilot. You can't be. And so it takes a special mindset, and so C&D has already been this other sort of passion project for me. But keeping bees was something that was a unique element that, like, I don't think I've ever created a blend before where it's like, here's something from a totally different aspect of my life that I can also incorporate into this.
Wow. So it's like that blend almost is kind of like a small resume of who you are in a tin a little bit.
In some ways, it feels that way.
Yeah.
It felt like a very, very personal blend.
Wow. That is really, really cool. So for people out there, because people who watch the channel are like experienced smokers, they're just getting into it. So from your perspective, like, what do you say like makes a good blend? Because I know there's some of us out there who we have tried the basket cherry pipe tobacco, got our tongues burnt the crap out of, or we've had Captain Black, and not to, but I mean, they have a reputation of kind of like not being that great. So for you, what brings that pipe tobacco to the next level of being like, this is a solid tobacco, like this is what should go into making a solid product?
So I think in any smoking experience, and really outside of smoke, like I think in food or in wine or in whiskey or anything that I really enjoy, I want total engagement of my palate.
Okay.
That's not to say that there can't be kind of focus here or focus there. Like if you've got something that's very sweet, that's gonna engage the tip of your tongue. But if it's too focused on the tip of your tongue, you're gonna feel like you're not getting a very full or rich flavor profile. You need things that are engaging the back, the middle. You need elements of bitter and elements of nuttiness and elements of sour, and you need elements that are really going to engage your sinuses. And so I try to think about like, what are the components that I'm putting together in this blend, and even if it's a straight Virginia blend, you're using different Virginia components to try and get different spectrums, different ranges of flavor to create a mouth-filling and palate-engaging experience.
It's funny you compare the way you're describing the tobacco tasting process was very much how I go about whiskeys or spirits or wines, because you're right. If you have a wine that you only get it on the tip and then it completely dissipates by the time it's back, you don't think it's that great of a wine. Because you're like, where's the rest of the flavor?
Right.
Where's the rest of the engagement going on in my palate that gives me that fullness, or I taste it from the tip to the back, and the flavor changes as it goes back. And so that's kind of the same thing with the pipe tobacco as well. You're looking at it as pretty much like it is a luxury product. It is kind of like a connoisseur's delight. It is one of those finer things where, yes, there's a spectrum of flavor. Yes, there are things that get engaged in your palate. Yes, you can taste it, just like you do a high-end whiskey, bourbon, or wine. You can do the same thing with tobacco. It is not just about smoking. It's about engaging everything in the mouth. And that should be in a good blend for the most part. Oh, wow. Now, you said Sun Bear. Now, if there was something for the people listening right now, you're like, outside of Sun Bear, here's my second one that you need to go buy, and this is why.
Okay. I am always amazed by Sunday Picnic. This was one of Craig Tarler's blends, but I think that he just really knocked it out of the park. It's a beautiful collection of bright Virginia and red Virginia components with some Turkish Izmir and some Greek Basma, and then real Louisiana Perique, and pressed into a flake. It ages amazingly.
That already sounds exciting.
I think that it's absolutely exceptional.
And you said that was, what was the name of it again?
Sunday Picnic.
Sunday Picnic.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that sounds pretty good. All right. And so you're right there with the head of Cornell Diehl. Do you have any other side projects under that, or do you have any social media that maybe people can follow some of your exploits? Or are you?
Sure. Cornell and Diehl has Instagram. It's just at Cornell and Diehl. Facebook. Again, at Cornell and Diehl. And then follow us on, or I guess not follow us, but subscribe to Smoking Pipe's Daily Reader.
Okay, yeah.
For updates on new releases and things like that we do, or news updates.
Fantastic.
So,
well, this is awesome. I think I learned a lot, and I think everyone else did too. It was a pleasure, Jeremy.
Thanks so much, Kadesh.
All right, let's go get a drink.
Yeah, sounds good.